What's up, my dudes? Boys, I've been sipping way too much tea, dude. Getting a little bit too excited here, bro. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of you guys are really curious about what I think about that new Supercross 5 gameplay that just came out. And just to kind of clarify, that's not what you're seeing here in this gameplay, because I don't want to get in there and try to show off gameplay that I'm sure Milestone has exclusively given to like certain companies and people to release. You know, I don't want to do that to them. I don't just want to rip that gameplay, but we out here on some Supercross 4, and we're going to talk about that new gameplay of Supercross 5. So the gameplay that I'm talking about specifically in this video is what just came out on the PlayStation YouTube channel, and Supercross themselves, they posted a short little clip of it on their Instagram, the Supercross the Games Instagram account, right? But then the full gameplay was posted on the PlayStation's YouTube account, and it was with Aaron Plessinger on the Yamaha, right? And that's the gameplay I'm talking about here, okay? So you can kind of tell what exact gameplay I'm talking about. That's the first real long-form actual gameplay I've seen so far with Supercross 5. And yeah, just wanted to come in here. I'm sure there's a lot of you guys wondering what the tea-sipping, predicting, you know, a real talking motherfucker's gonna say about it, you know what I mean? So first things first, the graphics are obviously better. Okay, that's not really a surprise at this point with Milestone. Graphics do look better, which is a good thing. You know, don't ever get that twisted. Better graphics is always a good thing, in my opinion, in these kind of games, but you just don't want to get too caught up in it. You know what I'm saying? Now, when it comes to what does the gameplay really look like? Does it look like Supercross 3? Does it look like Supercross 4? What does it look like, Spencer? You know, that's probably what a lot of you guys are wondering. Personally, I think if anything, it looks probably the most like Supercross 4, which is not really a surprise. You know, obviously you would think it would look the most like the previous Supercross game. But just like as the general what the physics kind of look like, they look more like Supercross 4, but you can tell they're still trying to kind of figure out their like more arcadey style air physics, but kind of floaty air physics, but they're trying to, you can tell Milestone is trying to figure that part of their game out right now. And I kind of felt that way with Supercross 4 a little bit too. Like, I feel like Supercross 4 felt a lot different when you actually got the controller in your hands and you started playing it than it looked in those trailers. You know, I felt like it looked more floaty than it actually ended up playing once you got the controller in your hands. And so I kind of feel that same way with this Supercross 5 new gameplay. I think the air physics look a little bit quote-unquote floaty or whatever you want to call it, but don't be so quick to judge that, because it could be just like Supercross 4 in the sense of it feels a lot better than it looks. You know what I mean? That's the way I felt with Supercross 4 personally. Now, as far one interesting thing I saw in that gameplay was one of the corners, there was actually 2 or 3, like, I'm not going to go as far as to call them pre-made ruts. They were more like pre-made smaller berms in a sense, but there was a corner on that track in that new Supercross 5 gameplay where there was actually 2 or 3 kind of inside pre-made berms that you could obviously tell was not made by the terrain deformation. It was actual pre-made, like pre-made inside rut berm line that you could hit. It was kind of in a corner that would have been like this right here. You know, you could just kind of imagine that. So that was something I was interested in before Supercross 5 came out. Like, was it going to carry over some of that pre-made rut, you know, inside rut vibe like what MXGP 2021 sort of had to it? And it does look like we're going to be getting a little bit of that. It definitely wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't like every corner had all this pre-made to it or whatever. You know, it wasn't anything crazy like that. But I thought it was worth mentioning that it was there. You know what I'm saying? So that was another thing. Another thing I thought was pretty cool was the newer HUD. I think they've finally actually made somewhat of a decent advancement to the way the HUD looks from the previous game. Typically, the HUDs are like a super copy and paste, not much of a real difference to it. Kind of like going from MXGP 2020 to 21, okay? But this one actually looks pretty clean. That HUD I was seeing in that new Supercross 5 gameplay actually looked pretty clean, bro. Looked pretty good. Looked like they actually put some kind of effort into making the HUD. So that was a refreshing little change to it. They were kind of almost throwing these sort of oppo whip style turn back style whips on some of the jumps. They didn't really throw an actual real whip in that gameplay, so I can't really talk too much on that, but overall, yeah, it looks like Supercross 4, but just kind of tweaked upon a little bit. You know, the physics look tweaked upon. I can't really go as far to say if it's going to be better or worse. Whoa, Spency boy. You know what I mean? I'm not going to know that till I get my hands on that controller, bro. I can already tell you that at this point, and I don't want to jump the gun to judge it too quick because we're definitely in that realm with these milestone Supercross games to where they could fuck around and make a pretty good one, like physics-wise, you know what I mean? I mean, shit, we're on milestone game 69 at this point, you know. They could definitely make a decent physics system. So I don't want to jump the gun to be like, oh, dude, look at those floaty, trashy physics or whatever, because it may turn out to feel a lot better once you actually get the game in your hands. Now, I'm not really sure why they put the work in progress shit in that gameplay trailer when the game comes out in like less than a month. It's like, okay. Yeah, work in progress, but literally nothing is going to change from now until the time it comes out. So what you're seeing in that gameplay on that PlayStation YouTube video, that's the game. That is the game. Like, don't let that trick you up any, you know what I mean? But yeah, it doesn't really look like they've continued to make the jumps bigger and bigger or make you float up in the air more and more. You know, I was thinking they would have tried to have done that a little bit. It still don't really look like reflexy type scaling, which, you know, I'm not necessarily saying every track has to be like that or anything like that. And just seeing one track in the game is kind of hard to judge it, but yeah, I mean, I don't really know about the terrain deformation. Couldn't really tell. It definitely wasn't like obvious or apparent that there was a shitload of actual physical terrain deformation or anything like that. Kind of looked more of your standard run-of-the-mill, kind of like the Supercross 4 game looks. But again, they didn't run a shitload of laps. But one thing I will say about the terrain deformation is they didn't post anything about that on their website, dude. That's one thing you have to remember about that. It's like, if they were going to have this massive update or improvement to terrain deformation, I can promise you that would have been the first fucking thing that they put on their new features thing to their website or whatever. They would have been putting all new and improved terrain deformation that you can actually feel. Wow. And it's not just visual, you know. I just feel like they would have put that on their website if that was actually the case in these games in Supercross 5. So don't get too hyped up on the terrain deformation side of it. I would keep your hype in super check when it comes to that. But yeah, overall, I mean, there was like a hand gesture type thing. Kind of looked like Plessinger was flipping off dude that passed him up beside him. But yeah, it's kind of hard to tell. I mean, yeah, the bike still looks a little bit cushiony when it lands on something. It does kind of have some of that look to it still, but we'll see how much of that potential pop-off when you come up short on something or when you're going over whoops or whatever. We'll kind of have to see when the game comes out how much of a potential crashing mechanic the game really has to it. You know what I mean? I think that's going to make a big difference there as well, with how skill gap the game ends up feeling. But yeah, overall, that's kind of my first impression review of that early gameplay on it. Looks the most like Supercross 4, but still, I think it is going to be somewhat different. I just can't really tell quite as much how much different at this point, you know? So hopefully they've tweaked on the right things with the physics system and actually make it feel better, because, you know, with an arcade dirt bike game, it's always this fine balance between you're trying to make it where it's fun factor, you know, jumping up in the air, hitting big rhythms, all that kind of stuff, but then you also got to have some element of realism to it where you can pop off of the bike coming up short on humongous Supercross jumps, or potential for flipping over in the whoops. You know, it's like that fine balance between arcade fun factor fantasy and realistic potential pop-off skill gap, but not to the point of a simulator. You know, there really is a fine balance to that, and hopefully they can get that shit figured out, dog. But either way, just letting you guys know, I just came out with my first members-only video for the channel yesterday. It was a 2-stroke guide for MX Simulator. I went pretty deep on how to hit some triple ends on the newer RF Supercross tracks on the 2-strokes. If you're interested in that kind of content, all you got to do is hit that join button on my front page. I'm going to start doing a lot more members-only videos on that, so be sure and go in there and take a look at that. I know it doesn't really, like, notify all of you guys that aren't members when I go in there and make a members-only video, so you may not even have really realized that I was doing members-only videos at this point, but I want to start going in there and doing some cool exclusive, like showing you guys some of my custom tracks before they come out, doing some cool exclusive, like, deeper guide tutorial videos on MX Simulator, going a little bit deeper on some of the tips and tricks to that game. So just letting you know, just friendly reminder, we have started up the members-only video vibe shit for the channel, so become a dudeski today, you know what I'm saying, bro? Okay, so either way, that's about it for this video. I think Supercross 5 really does just come down to I wouldn't just go out there and pre-order it. I wouldn't just go out there and buy it ahead of time. I would wait until you can get guys like me that can get in there and actually play the game, feel the game, and give you guys somewhat of an opinion on it in that sense, you know, and then you can go in there and make your decision whether or not you want to buy the game, because I feel like it's kind of 50-50 at this point with Supercross 5. It could either be like actually quite a bit better than Supercross 4, or it could easily be worse than Supercross 4. We just don't really know yet, you know? And I know there's been some people that's kind of played the game at like the real life Supercross races in the pits and stuff, but I don't even know if that's like the newest version of the game or anything like that. So, like I say, I really think Supercross 5 is going to come down to you're actually going to have to, somebody like me is going to have to actually play it and then tell you how it feels in that sense, and, you know, the risk of coming up short, and if the physics feel too floaty, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be more of a feel thing than a visual thing, you know what I mean? I don't think it's going to be one of them games that you can really just review by the looks of it, you know? I think it's going to really come down to the physical, actually playing the game. At the end of the day, I think that's what it's all going to come down to, bro. So, we'll kind of see. I mean, yeah, the new gameplay, they did kind of didn't come up super short on any of the jumps, but they did almost flip over in the whoop section a little bit, so that was good to see that. Obviously, with these Supercross games, kind of sucks when they get them, like, too arcadey, where there's no chance in hell at all of flipping over in the whoops or popping off the bike when you come up short on a jump or anything. That's how the first official Monster Energy Supercross game was. It was just way too casual, way too easy, even for an arcade motocross game, you know. And then Supercross 2 started to really improve on some of those things, and Supercross 3 really improved on a lot of that shit. And And then, yeah, so, but nonetheless, man, I mean, obviously Milestone, you know, it's still the same shit as far as how much time they have to work on the game before it comes out. All that kind of stuff is all still the same. So we can't really jump the gun to expect so much more out of Milestone than they've ever done before, but I do feel like they've made some decent improvements to these Supercross games with Supercross 3 and 4. So if they can kind of get all that together, it's got the potential to be a decent little Supercross game. You know what I mean? Supercross 5 definitely has that potential. Now, when you look on their website at all these quote-unquote new features to the game, there are really not any new features to the game. So, you know, you definitely don't want to really jump the gun into thinking you're going to have all these new features and shit, because I don't really believe that. But they are going to have some Legends DLC with Jeremy McGrath and Dungy in the game. So that's pretty cool. Some different old school stadiums. I think they're going to have a really old school Daytona in the game. So we'll see kind of how all that track content plays together. I think this is all replicating last year's Supercross real life racing. So some of it will be the whatever the hell, like residency, right? Where you've got like 3 or 4 races in the same stadium. So it's all going to come down to what do they do to combat that lack thereof of track content and things along those lines. You know, I felt like that was something that dramatically hurt the track content of Supercross 4, was the fact that damn near half of the tracks were in the same stadium with the same dirt, you know, just a different layout, right? That gets very monotonous and repetitive. And then on top of everything else with Supercross 4, the little free ride, you know, Supercross training compound tracks were nowhere near as good as the ones that we got in Supercross 3. And the motocross track on the free ride compound of Supercross 4, I felt like was also nowhere near to the level of the one in Supercross 3. So I feel like that you know, base track content is going to play a big role in the replayability of Supercross 5. So hopefully they can get their shit together with that. And now that we know the track editor doesn't really have any massive improvements to it, it just has a rhythm section saver in it, that's not really looking too promising to create all that much more track content in the game. So yeah, at the end of the day with Supercross 5, it's a keep your hype in check, be careful, wait until some of these real-ass YouTubers like me come in here and review it and give you a real opinion on it instead of just a sugar-coated neutral boy opinion on it, okay? Then make your decision then if you want to buy the game. That's my piece of advice to you boys. So, either way, man, appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, dudes.